च धर्मस्य सर्वधर्मस्वरूपिणे अवतारवरिष्ठाय रामकृष्णाय ते नमः. Good evening, everyone. Today, as you all know, is the sacred Vijayadashami. Vijayadashami, the day following the 9 days of festival called Navaratri. And this Vijayadashami is considered to be one of the most auspicious days in the Hindu calendar. Many people wait for this day to start any new project, a new endeavor. So the belief is that anything that is started today will end in success. So Vijaya means victory. Vijayadashami, so this is the 10th day of the lunar month. So Vijayadashami, so this is one of the very auspicious day, and I cannot think of any other day better than this day for starting our study on Kathopanishad. So today I plan to give a brief introduction to Upanishads in general. Before actually getting into Kathopanishad, it would be better to have a general overview of the entire mass of literature that is known as Upanishads. After that, we'll of course go into the details of the Kathopanishad. The some of you may be aware of these details. Nevertheless, it is good to go through them once again and revise. Upanishads are part of the Vedas. Now, the religion of Hindus, what we now today call Hinduism, or what is more often known as Sanatana Dharma, is based on the Vedas. Now, three points are very important regarding the Vedas. The first thing is that they are not composed by any person. Okay? They are not authored by any person like other forms of literature. So you take a novel or a book of poems, or even for that matter history. So everything is authored by a person. But this Vedas, they are not authored by any person. So the advantage of not having a person is we can be sure that it is free from error, okay, and free from personal bias. So when we say that so and so has written a book, and if that so and so is leaning towards one particular philosophy or one particular worldview, then we know that his composition will also have that bias. But whereas this Vedas, they are not products of any men or women. Then how did they come? We say it is voice of God. So it's God himself is speaking through them. So God, when he created this world, he first created Brahma. So Brahma is the creator, and God breathed out, that is the language used. God breathed out the Vedas to Brahma. Okay. So and from Brahma it has come down to us through a series of guru and disciple, teacher and disciple relationships. So usually before starting the study of the Upanishads, it is customary to pay respects to Shankaracharya. Okay, as you know, he is the great commentator. The one verse which is commonly used in paying tributes to Shankaracharya goes like this: Sadashiva Samarambham Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam. So, Sadashiva Samarambham. So, it starts with the Guru Shishya Parampara starts with Sadashiva. Sadashiva is the Lord Maheshwara, the Lord, the great Lord. So, it starts from him. And then there is a series of disciples. And then somewhere in 8th century, we had Shankaracharya. And from Shankaracharya till today, 21st century, we have a series of gurus, and through them this knowledge has come to us. So it is not any man-made work. Then another very important thing that is said about the Vedas is that they are eternal. Okay, they are eternal. So they exist just like God. See, with respect to God, we cannot say that he had origin in such and such a time. No, that is meaningless to say with regard to God. Similarly, the Vedas are also considered to be eternal. Now, immediately the question will arise: how can books be regarded as eternal? Books cannot be considered eternal. So, the answer is that by Vedas we do not mean the books. Okay, so by Vedas we primarily mean the body of knowledge, the huge mine of knowledge regarding God, ultimate reality, or whatever you want to call. So that knowledge is called is the primary meaning of the Vedas. Secondarily, it means the books, but primarily it is the knowledge. Now, this knowledge, you will agree that there is no beginning. Say, for example, the principle of gravitation. Now, the law of gravitation, so it existed before. When Newton discovered it, it's not that he created the law, right? So it existed even much before Newton and continues to do so. Even if Newton had not discovered it, it would have operated in this very much same fashion as it is doing now. So this knowledge of the Vedas also were discovered by rishis in their high state of consciousness, in their yoga state, and they passed it on to their disciples, and it has come down to us. That is the meaning. Now, this is the orthodox view. But historically speaking, say, Vedas are usually placed somewhere between 2000 BC to 3000 BC. Okay, so scholars say it is at least 5 millennia old. Okay, so 2000 BC to 3000 BC. It is so ancient. And obviously, at that time, there was no writing. So it all came through the oral tradition. The teacher would memorize all the Vedas, all the mantras, and he will teach the disciple. The disciple also will commit those verses into his memory and keep it alive, and he will pass it on to his disciples. So that is how the whole thing came. So later we will see certain some defects which are in the Vedas, Upanishad that we find are ascribed to because of this oral tradition. See, if a teaching is committed to writing, if it is in a book, then it is less likely to get modified in the course of time. Unless you revise the book and the editor revising it tries to show his creativity. There is less likely to have any changes. But when it comes to oral tradition, it is difficult. It is difficult. Then there are two ways of classifying the text of the Vedas, all the mantras. The first classification is according to the preference given to either karma or knowledge. I mean, the portion of the Vedas which deal with sacrifices is called karma kanda. That is the first portion of the Vedas. During Vedic period, the religion, Hindu religion, was much different from the way we see it today. Okay, so in the Vedic religion, there were no temples, there were no idols, there were no deities that we worship today. Okay, it was entirely different. The main practice during those days, the main form of religion was through sacrifices. Huge sacrifices means what we call homa fires. Homa is actually a very, very, what I should say, miniature version of the sacrifice. So the sacrifices during Vedic period were a very big affair. So they would construct huge fire pits, and many priests would assemble, and the sacrifice would go on for days together, and each priest would be chanting a particular set of mantras. So like that, and it would also involve huge expenses. So only kings and princes, they could afford to do such yagnas. But today, Hinduism, we have it has taken a different form. Those kind of sacrifices are no longer practiced today, maybe except in some corner. One or two may be exceptions, but for the most part, we are not following that tradition of sacrifices. So this Vedas, the portion of the Vedas which dealt with these sacrifices were called karma kanda. So the word karma in this context means sacrifice. This was a very, very considerable portion. But then came the next part, which was called Jnanakanda. So Jnanakanda is the knowledge portion. Here, the focus is on inquiry, knowledge, rather than on external performances. This Karmakanda and Jnanakanda together form the Vedas. So this was the one way of classification. The other way of classifying the Upanishads is mantras and samhitas. So mantras are hymns and samhitas. So mantras are actually the crux, the main part of the Vedas, dealing with eternal principles, and also hymns which were used to invite various gods to the sacrifices. Okay, so mantras consist of these things, and brahmanas, mantras and brahmanas. So brahmanas they are more practical in their application. So they dealt with how these mantras or samhitas can be put into use in a particular sacrifice. So this was the another classification. Now some portion of this brahmanas were taught to certain people who lived in forests and who were under a particular vow of observances, some spiritual observances. the teachings which were given to such people were called Aranyakas. So Aranyakas are part of the Brahmanas, so which were given to people who lived in forests, undergoing special penances. And now we come to Upanishads. Upanishads are actually the end portion of these Aranyakas. So let me put them together once again. So first we have Samhitas, mantras or Samhitas, which were the hymns used to invite gods to sacrifices. They also contain the main theme of the Vedas. The eternal principles are there in the mantras. And then come the second portion is Brahmanas. Brahmanas are mostly used in performance of sacrifices. How the mantras or samhitas are put into use in a particular sacrifice, those topics are dealt in the Brahmanas. Then a portion of the Brahmanas is called Aranyakas. Okay, Aranyakas were taught to the people who were Aranya. The word Aranya means a forest in Sanskrit. So from Aranya comes Aranyaka. So they were taught to people in forest, and Upanishads, they form part of the Aranyakas. Upanishads usually they form part of the Aranyakas. Now almost all the Upanishads are found in Aranyakas. Okay, so that is the last portion of the Vedas. So the only one exception is Ishavasya Upanishad or Isha Upanishad, which we find in the mantras, in the Samhita portion. In the Samhita portion, that is the only Upanishad that we have found so far in the Samhita portion. All the other Upanishads are either in the Brahmanas or in the Aranyakas. This is the another way of classifying the Vedas. But before we move on to the next topic, I would like to clarify that yes, the Upanishads form the crux of the the Vedantic thought. That is, the teachings of the Vedas reached their pinnacle in Upanishads. That is true, but we should not think that the earlier portion, the Samhitas, mantras or Samhitas were only occupied with sacrifices and they did not contain high thoughts. No, that is not the correct view. Okay, so many great thoughts which are developed and elaborated in Upanishads originated in Samhitas. So you can find the trace, the root of those thoughts in the Samhitas. And the Samhitas, the rishis there, they had a more integral vision of the reality, and that is evident in those mantras. So though we mostly study Upanishads, for whatever reason, the Samhitas or mantras are also very grand. But as I said, the later schools of philosophy, especially Vedanta, they all developed based on Upanishads. Next, now this we saw that mantras or Samhitas, they form the main first portion of the Vedas. Now it was a huge mass of literature then. Okay, so it was becoming difficult for any one person to commit to memory all that huge mass of mantras. So Vyasa, a great sage named Vyasa, what he did, he collected all the mantras and divided them into 4 parts. Okay, so that is how we came. That is how the 4 Vedas came into vogue. So the four Vedas, Rig Veda, Yajur Veda, Sama Veda and Atharva Veda. So these four Vedas are actually the categorization of the Samhita portion. Okay, the mantras which are found in Samhitas were classified. So what is the basis of classification? That is also given, that is also discussed. So the Rig Veda contained the hymns, Yajur Veda contained the technical details of sacrifices. Sam Veda contains the hymns of Rig Vedas, okay, but they are set to tune. They are sung rather than chanted. And then Atharva Veda is more like an appendix, okay, so dealing with various other aspects which are not covered in the first three Vedas. So this they say is the broad classification of the four Samhitas. The Rig Veda, the Yajur Veda, I said Rig Veda, Yajur Veda, Sama Veda and Atharva Veda. The Yajur Veda, second Veda, that is Yajur Veda, even from the very ancient times, it branched into two parts. Okay, so one is called the Shukla Yajur Veda, another is called the Krishna Yajur Veda. So they are two separate in the sense the contents are there is not much common between them. So for all practical purposes, it means we have five Vedas. Rig Veda, because Yajur Veda is divided into two Vedas, Krishna Yajur Veda. So some people, Krishna actually means black, okay, and Shukla means white, okay. I'm sorry.
What do the other names mean? The Rig Veda, what do the other names mean?
Other names means what is the meaning of Rig Veda?
Yeah, yes, yeah.
No, see, Rig Veda, the word Rik means a hymn. That's all. So Rik plus Veda becomes Rig Veda. Yajus also means same. They all denote the mantras of the Vedas. Now this Krishna Yajur Veda, Krishna means black, okay, and Shukla Yajur Veda, Shukla, the literal meaning of the Shukla is one meaning rather is white. So some people, especially Western scholars, they call these two Vedas white Yajur Veda and black Yajur Veda. Okay, that is very, very funny. Okay, so that is not at all a correct translation. So better to go with these words. And also there is a very, if you if you are interested, you can read the story how these two Krishna Yajur Veda and Shukla Yajur Veda came. That's also an interesting story. Anyhow, we will not go into that. So Rig Veda, and then Yajur Veda which is divided into two parts, and then Sama Veda and Atharva Veda. So these four or five Vedas, and the important thing is they contain this Samhita portion. Okay, Samhita portion. Say for example, if you say, yes, I want a book of the Vedas. Even in our monastery we have a book of the Vedas. So it contains only the Samhita portion. Okay, so there is no one book which is available anywhere which contains the entire Rig Veda. I mean Rig Veda which has the Samhita, Brahmana, Aranyaka, Upanishad, all put together. That is not available, okay, because the Brahmanas, Aranyaka and Upanishad, they all have come down to us, okay, but they did not come to us as part of the Vedas. So only Acharyas and great scholars, they have said that what we call this Brahmana or this Upanishad is part of the Vedas. It is scholars who have decided that it belongs to that Vedas. Otherwise, it is not available as one book. That is another point to keep in mind. So, as I said, this Vedas it was a huge mass of literature, and there was no writing available in those days. So only a portion of it has come down to us to this day. So it is very difficult to say how many Upanishads they contain originally. So we don't know. We don't know for certainty that how many Upanishads were there. There is one Upanishad called Muktikopanishad. Okay, so in that Muktikopanishad, we have a list of 108 Upanishads. That gives us a list of 108 Upanishads, and that is the one authority to list the Upanishads. Now, this 108 Upanishads, the entire list is given. We will not go into that list. And also the Upanishad, that Muktikopanishad, and Muktikopanishad is also included, of course, in that 108 Upanishads. And it also gives us the classification that this Upanishad belongs to Rigveda, this belongs to Shukla Yajurveda. So all that classification is also given in the Muktikopanishad. Now, all these 108 Upanishads, they are not of equal importance. Okay, so some of them which eulogize certain sectarian deities. Say, we have Upanishads called Varaha Upanishad, Skanda Upanishad, Pashupata Upanishad, Devi Upanishad, Varaha Upanishad, like this. So, Dattatreya, Avadhuta Upanishad. So, these Upanishads, they eulogize one particular deity of one particular sect. Okay, so these, naturally, it is very, very evident that they were all of much later origin. So they were not that. So when these sects came up, so they composed a new Upanishad to give a rational foundation, to give an air of orthodoxy to that sect. They composed a Upanishad. So, but they were not that ancient. That is one point. Then, how do we know which are the most important Upanishads among these 108? So that we have to depend on Sri Shankaracharya. So Shankaracharya, he chose to comment on 10 or 11 Upanishads. So most people say 10, some people say 11 Upanishads. So these Upanishads which are commented upon by Sri Shankaracharya, they are considered the principal Upanishads. Now these 10 Upanishads, the names of these 10 Upanishads, that we should remember. Okay, these are very important for the students of Vedanta. Isha Upanishad, Kena Upanishad, Katha Upanishad, Mundaka Upanishad, Mandukya Upanishad, Taittiriya Upanishad, Aitareya Upanishad, then Chandogya Upanishad, and Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. Did I miss anything? Isha Upanishad, Kena Upanishad, Katha Upanishad, Prashna Upanishad, Mundaka, Mandukya Upanishad, Taittiriya Upanishad, Aitareya Upanishad, Chandogya Upanishad, and Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. So this makes it 10. Now, the one Upanishad which is important, which many people say was commented upon by Shankaracharya, is Shvetashvatara Upanishad. Here Swami Sarvadevanji is teaching Shvetashvatara Upanishad on Tuesdays. Right? So, but scholars are divided on this point, whether the commentary that is available today, was it really written by Shankaracharya or not is debatable. But whereas the commentaries on these 10 Upanishads are definitely attributed to Sri Shankaracharya. Apart from these 10 Upanishads, as I said, there are another 98 Upanishads, so which are listed in the Muktika Upanishad, and it's not that this 108 is fixed, okay? So with time, new Upanishads keep coming. Say, for example, even Swami Vivekananda mentions this. When Akbar was ruling India, so he asked these Sanskrit scholars to compose one Upanishad called Allo Upanishad, okay, to describe or to elaborate on the principle of Allah, okay, the God Allo Upanishad. So Akbar was known for that liberal view. So new Upanishads, they keep coming. So I think even in our order, our Harshananji Maharaj composed one Upanishad. And we have Sri Ramakrishna Upanishad, though it is you have a book titled Sri Ramakrishna Upanishad by one C. Rajagopalachari, but that is not in Sanskrit. It is basically a compilation of Sri Ramakrishna's sayings, but the title he has given is Sri Ramakrishna Upanishad. So the new Upanishads, as I said, so whenever a new school of thought, a new sect, when they come up, they are free to compose a Upanishad. So just for following, see, the language of the Upanishads or for Vedas for Vedas in general is very, very archaic. Okay, the Sanskrit is very archaic, and the Sanskrit language is very, very flexible. Very, very flexible. So a good Sanskrit scholar will not find it difficult to compose a Upanishad, okay, and give it name Upanishad. Okay, so just imitating the original Upanishads. Yes, what this shows is in what great respect the Upanishads are held. See, why do people want to imitate the original Upanishad? Because the original Upanishads are held in such great esteem. That is the reason they want to imitate. So, but for our studies, it is sufficient, at least if we study, if we go through these 10 major Upanishads and try to imbibe some of their teaching. That should be sufficient for us. Now, as I said, all these Upanishads came down to us through oral tradition. So because of this oral tradition, there are some problems. Means, see, there are some mantras which occur in 2 or more than 2 Upanishads. The same mantra, almost verbatim, they appear in 2 or more than 2 Upanishads. And then there are certain topics, say for example, Panchagni Vidya, Daharakasha Vidya. They are the same topic is dealt in, say, in Chandogya Upanishad as well as in Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. So you cannot explain, why should the same section, same topic should appear in 2 different Upanishads. So, and also say in Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, there is one section, I think Yagnavalkya Maitreyi Samvada, the entire section repeats twice in the same Upanishad. entire section is repeated twice. So all these are exigencies of the oral tradition. So because there was no writing and it has to be communicated from orally, from teacher to disciple and then to his disciple, and that too not for a few decades or centuries, it is for millennia. Okay, so all these these issues are there, but we should also appreciate that they have come down to us from such ancient times. See, even today we are able to study them and chant them exactly in the same way as those rishis did. Okay, so because many of these Vedas, Vedic portions, they come with what is called Sanskrit intonations. Okay, the swaras, Swarita, Udatta, Anudatta. So they come with these swaras, markings. So they are chanted exactly in the same way, and they are learnt. The teacher teaches the disciple to chant them according to the rules, and because the students learn along with these swaras, so they are able to memorize it properly as well as keep it as it is. Okay, so that is the great thing about the Vedas. Now, Upanishads, the Upanishad means knowledge of Brahman or knowledge of reality. That is what the meaning. But the word Upanishad as such, it means sitting near. Okay, sitting near. So by connotation, it means the knowledge which is taught by the teacher to the disciple who is sitting near, Upanishad. So that is the meaning. The another meaning which Sri Shankaracharya has discussed in his introduction to two of the Upanishads, including Kathopanishad, is that Upanishad means the knowledge. It is the knowledge which liberates the soul from ignorance. So the knowledge, Upanishad. So he goes into the root of the word Upanishad. So the prefix, suffix, and all those Sanskrit grammar is discussed in the commentary, in the introduction to the Kathopanishad commentary. And by that analysis, what he arrives at is this Upanishad means it is the knowledge which removes or destroys the ignorance and leads the soul to liberation. So that is the meaning of the word Upanishad. Just as in the Vedas, Upanishad means the knowledge, but secondarily it means the books containing that knowledge. So only in the secondary sense, say for example, if I say that I have the Kathopanishad book with me, so I am not wrong. I am using the word in the secondary sense that the book is also called Upanishad because it contains the knowledge. But primarily it means the knowledge. Upanishad means the knowledge. And as we said earlier, these Upanishads are also known as Vedanta in two senses. In the first sense, because it comes at the Anta. Anta is the end portion of the Vedas. So as I said, they usually form the part of the Aranyakas, which come at the end of the Vedas, Vedic books. Now, because they come at the end, they are called Veda Anta. Or, in another sense, Vedanta means the quintessence, the pinnacle of the philosophical inquiry is reached in the Upanishads. So they are the essence of the Vedas. They are the essence of the Vedas. In that sense also, these Upanishads are called the Vedanta. Now, another thing that we should keep in mind before we study the Upanishads is their role in giving us the knowledge. Okay, so we say it is book of knowledge. Then what is their specific role? The Vedas and Upanishads, they are considered as Shabda Pramana. Means they are one of the valid means of knowledge. Okay, so just as we have direct perception as one valid means of knowledge. So we see a tree and we know that it is such and such a tree, and we have gain the knowledge of the tree. How did we do that? It is by seeing and observing. So it is direct perception. So perception is one means of valid knowledge. Now another means of valid knowledge is inference. So we infer based on the knowledge. So early morning we step out of our house and we see our car is wet, the roads are wet. So we infer that it must have rained last night. Okay. So rain, we did not see the rain, but we have inferred. So this inference is also another valid means of knowledge. Now this perception and inference, they can operate only in this world, in the world of sense objects. Okay, but beyond this world, in the supersensual plane, this direct perception or inference is of little use. Okay, so they cannot operate there. So then how do we know things of supernatural, about things of supernatural nature, supersensuous nature? It is only through the Vedas. Okay, so Vedas, they are considered as a means of knowledge, a valid means of knowledge. So what Vedas say about, say for example, whether our personality survives death. Okay, whether is there a place called heaven? Okay, is there reincarnation? Or say, what is the goal of the human soul? All these questions, all these fundamental questions of philosophy. So regarding these questions, we cannot depend on our direct perception or inference. Okay, they cannot help us much. Okay, so we have to depend on the Vedas, Upanishads to find answers to these questions, and they are considered a valid means of knowledge. So Shabda Pramana, so that is the word which is used. And we also say that Upanishads have the last word on the ultimate questions. So regarding these questions, so Upanishads have the last answer. So nothing much can be said after the Upanishad. So this position, some of you may think that it is dogmatic. Why do you say that Upanishads are the last word? So the one way to understand that is, see, as I said, Upanishads deal not with things of this world. Say, for example, a technology. Say, today we have 5G technology. Nobody can say that 5G technology is the ultimate. Okay, so after 10 years, we do not know. So something altogether new, which we cannot even dream now, may come up. Okay, so nobody can say about that. But Vedas and Upanishads, they do not deal with these things. They deal with the ultimate reality. Now this ultimate reality, by definition, is beyond time and space. Beyond time, space or causation. So it is not subject to any change. So this ultimate reality is not subject. So when you are speaking about such a thing, such reality which is not subject to any change, what new you can add? So Upanishads, so those the rishis, they have discovered those ultimate truths, answers to these fundamental questions, and nothing more can be added to that. That is one position. Okay, but so Swami Vivekananda, in one place, of course in a different context, he says, do you think the books of Vedas are finished? No, there is many more chapters remain to be written. Okay, and he urges his followers that each one of you should become a rishi, and should not simply swallow what others, the old rishis have said. So Swami Vivekananda says, yes, that also we can understand that in a way that yes, the ultimate reality, understanding that ultimate reality. So Vedas, Upanishads, they give us one understanding, but we can also experiment, reach that higher state, and come up with our own understanding, and Sri Ramakrishna, as you all know, he has said there are infinite paths to reach the goal, right? So it's quite possible that new paths are discovered. That is quite possible. So in Hinduism, in Indian thought, there is always scope for that. So we are not dogmatic. Then about the teachings of the Upanishads. So Upanishads, as I said, they develop the idea which we find in seed form in the Samhitas. Okay, so it was Samhitas during the period of the Vedas. Sacrifice was the main form of religion. Now Upanishads, they decry this sacrifice. They do not promote the sacrifices, but at the same time there is plenty of references to sacrifice in the Upanishads. Okay, a lot. Say for example, even in the Kathopanishad that we are going to study, the opening scene is a sacrifice. Okay, Brihadaranyaka Upanishad opens with a sacrifice. So there are many references. Now what Upanishad did, this, see, earlier in the Samhitas, the people were desirous of reaching, of attaining unending joy. They wanted unending bliss without any sorrow, uncontaminated by any sorrow. That was their desire. And how to get that joy, unlimited joy? It is by reaching the heaven. So how to reach that heaven? You perform the sacrifice. So that was the scheme. Okay, so you want joy, you go to heaven, and to go to heaven, you perform the sacrifice in general. But Upanishad, what the Upanishads, the rishis of the Upanishad, they said, see, your desire for unlimited joy is good, no harm, but it is, you cannot get that unlimited joy in heaven. Okay, the joy in heaven will also be limited. Okay, so you one day you will have to, that heaven will come to an end, just like any other place on earth. So it has a beginning and it has an end. So, and you will also have to come down. Means you one day your joy will end. So you have, if you are interested in unending joy, unlimited joy, then you have to find it within yourself, not in heaven. So this was the Upanishad. The Upanishadic seers, they said that you have to go within yourself to find that unlimited joy. Don't look for it in the heaven. So that was the message. And then about the method, see, now the people were very much habituated to the performance of sacrifices. So in Upanishads we said the seers, what was their prescription? They did not say all to give up the Upanishad, to give up the sacrifices altogether. Instead, they internalize the sacrifices. Instead of performing a sacrifice with external things, okay, external altar, external fire, external this ghee or clarified butter. So the whole process was internalized. Okay, and through that they try to raise the the mind of the worshipper. The Upanishads, that was the scheme. And also, varieties of meditation techniques called upasanas. They were these upasanas were recommended in the Upanishads. So these upasanas, they guide the aspirant to higher and higher levels of reality. So Upanishads followed this approach. Now, the central theme of the Upanishads is to find unity among this diverse world. So, what is the unity? So, say for example, in Mundaka Upanishad, the question, the Mundaka Upanishad starts with that question: what is that by knowing which everything else becomes known? Okay, so the student in Mundaka Upanishad is interested in knowing that one thing by knowing which everything else becomes known. So, the trend is towards finding the unity. Okay. Now, what is the answer? Answer that is given is yes. This universe, all this multiplicity, diversity has come from the ultimate reality, the God. So, by knowing the ultimate reality, you come to know everything. Yatova in Taittiriya Upanishad, this is discussed. Yatova imani bhutani jayante. So this whole world has come from that ultimate reality. It is sustained by that ultimate reality, and to that it goes back. So you know that ultimate reality, then you know the entire thing. So then the question will be raised: how by knowing that ultimate reality, everything else, how do you say that? The illustration given is that, see, ultimate reality is the cause, and this world of varied forms is the effect. And by the effect, this world is in essence is nothing but the cause. So if you know the cause, say if you know the earth, the illustration is from clay, so many items are made, say clay toys, clay deities, clay playthings, all those things are made. And now if we know the clay, we know all things that are made of clay. So whether it is a pot or a toy or an image, everything we will know if we understand the clay. So in Chandogya Upanishad, Ekena Mrutpindena is a very celebrated verse. Vacharambanam vikaro namadeyam. So if we know the ultimate reality, which is the cause, then we will know, we can say that we have known all that is come out of that cause, which are the effects. So similarly, there is a discussion on the soul, the individual soul. So that we will save it for the next class. We'll discuss that, and then we will go to Kathopanishad. In the next class, we will take up the Kathopanishad proper text. So now we have 5 minutes. If you have any questions or if you have any comments to make, you are welcome.
Question. So you said originally the Vedas were initially about worship through sacrifice. What period in history is that?
The scholars say it is between 3000 BC and 5000 BC. It is so ancient. It is so ancient. And these Upanishads, they say it is at least before Buddhist period. Buddha is 500 BC, before Buddha. So between 500 BC and 1500 BC. So this is the time of the Upanishads, the time period of the Upanishads.
And the major thrust of the Kathopanishad deals with
Huh.
each part of.
Kathopanishad is, it forms the part of Krishna Yajurveda. I said Yajurveda has branched into two, Krishna Yajurveda and Shukla Yajurveda. So this Kathopanishad is part of the Krishna Yajurveda. But as I said, this assertion that Kathopanishad belongs to Krishna Yajurveda is by the scholars. Okay, so there is no authentic way. There is no certain way to prove that point. So some believe that it is part of, say, Atharva Veda also. Okay, so the ground for believing that Kathopanishad is part of the Krishna Yajurveda is, in Krishna Yajurveda there is one Brahmana called Kataka Brahmana. So this name Katha, Kathopanishad has one more name called Kathakopanishad, and we come across Kataka Brahmana in the Krishna Yajurveda. So that is why scholars think that this Kathopanishad is part of the is Krishna Yajurveda. But as most of you may know, there is a beautiful story of Nachiketa in Kathopanishad. That story in seed form is found even in Rigveda. Okay, there is mention of that story in a very brief form in Rigveda. That is elaborated in the Kataka Brahmana. Okay, Kataka Brahmana adds some more details, but in Kathopanishad we have full details. So there is an evolution of the idea.
Are there themes to each of these Upanishads? Like how do we think about it mentally? Because if the idea is only to contemplate on Brahman, why do we have these many? And is there a way to create a mental map?
So creating a mental map may be challenging in terms of the Upanishads. See, some Upanishads, say for example, Kena Upanishad, yes, there is one central theme. Mandukya Upanishad, yes, there is a central theme, Avastatrayat. But Upanishads like Kathopanishad, though it centers on one question, around one question, many topics are discussed. Okay, and when we come to larger Upanishads like Chandogya Upanishad and Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, they are like encyclopedia. So many details are there. And one more thing that we should remember is, see, these Upanishadic, they are not literature. They are not proper literature. In the sense, they are not like a dissertation which raises certain questions and answers it in a methodical way. No, it is not that. See, they all came out of inspiration. These Upanishads are so they are very fresh, but at the same time, you don't find a logical structure in them. Okay, so and many mantras are so difficult to understand without the help of the commentators. So just even if you are a good Sanskrit scholar, still you may not be able to get to the meaning of the Upanishad because we are so far removed from that culture which produced the Upanishad, both in terms of time and space. So it is very difficult. So to make a mental map is very difficult. And one more very challenging thing is, you can never come to the end of the study of the Upanishad. Even one particular Upanishad, okay, you can never say that yes, I have understood fully, because they are so suggestive. Okay, so as you dwell on them, say for example Kathopanishad itself. So when we discuss, I will give you some hints that how different scholars have tried to unearth new layers of meaning, different dimensions. See, the words are simple, but so many dimensions are there. So it is very, very challenging. But still, at least in case of some Upanishads, this Kena Upanishad, Mandukya Upanishad, Kathopanishad, if we are sincere, we can at least make one outline. Acha, these are the topics discussed here in this Upanishad. That way we can make mental map. Any other question? Okay, we'll end here. We'll meet next time. We'll discuss the Kathopanishad, and I have something more left about the teachings of Upanishads in general, and then Kathopanishad. Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Tat Sat Shri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu.